Well, let's turn our attention to other stories. Nigeria's Export-Import Bank says it has a mandate to promote export diversification of the non-oil sector.
Nigeria's economy is mainly dependent on
months. The Nigerian Export-Import Bank has been working with the Central Bank of Nigeria to review existing policies and strategies towards increasing funding support and stimulating additional investments in the non-oil export sector. During the course of this review, we have had calls to meet with various stakeholders, including exporters, commodity associations, bankers, and the organized private sector, as well as other relevant government agencies, to obtain their strategic inputs and share perspectives towards achieving our common objective of diversifying the Nigerian economy, as well as improving and broadening the contribution of the non-oil export sector to our national development.
50 billion export-free discounting and refinancing facilities were established by the central bank against the backdrop of the fast-dwindling oil revenue and the need to urgently reposition the non-oil export sector to enhance its contribution towards increased foreign exchange earnings. It was also observed that the non-oil export credit has been on the decline when compared to the total domestic credit to the private sector. To this end, the facilities were designed to redress the declining export credit and to fast-track the growth of the sector.
All right, from our Abuja studio is a consultant with the ECOWAS Commission, Professor Jonathan Aremu. Professor, it's good to have you join us right now.
Thank you.
All right, now let's start it this way. When it comes to exports, Nigeria, apart from oil, hasn't been known to export a lot. But those who are very close to the industry said Nigerians are exporting a lot. Now, can you give us an idea, generally, of what is Nigeria exporting apart from oil?
Can they repeat it?
Professor, I wonder if you can hear me. Welcome to the program, let me say. I am saying that when it comes to exportation, Nigeria is more of an import-driven economy and only exports oil. But aside from oil, what else does Nigeria really export?
Well, I'm not hearing you properly. The few thing I can hear is that Nigeria is mainly an exporter of oil. Other things are not very clear.
All right, but I can hear you very clearly. I can hear you very clearly. Let me say again.
Okay.
Okay, if you can hear me now, but we can hear you here very clearly. I am asking you that apart from
I'm
oil,
hearing you now.
Okay, apart from oil, what else does Nigeria really export?
Okay. Well, the potential of Nigerian export is massive. It's quite much. But right, unfortunately, the concentration has been on oil for quite some time. And that accounts for the problem we are facing now. Let me say that in year 2011, the former Minister of Trade and Investment set up an expert to look into these kind of issues. I was not in the country, but I was one of the technical team. The technical team was headed by Professor Yejide, a wonderful professor in trade. Me also, that is my area, but focusing on investment aspect of it. And other people in the panel are Professor Kwanache, who is now a Vice Chancellor, Professor Adeyemi, the President of Nigerian Economic Society, Nasima, and then representative of Central Bank. And we came out with a very, very extensive document of the kind of path that will allow Nigerian economy to be able to face the challenges of import and export in this country and therefore move from a monocultural economy to a better economy. Yes, we identify the issue of too much concentration on monoculturality, and we make our recommendation. I don't know where that report is doing now. I don't know how far it is being implemented. But let me say that quite a lot of issues that we actually allow us to be able to change this kind of focus that is not helping the economy are right there in the report. So there are quite a lot of other products which Nigeria have potential to export. Nigeria is quite good in non-oil export, particularly when it comes to tin, mine, and diamond, quite a lot of mineral products. But not much has been done. The current minister is doing quite substantial things. In terms of agri, yes, in the past, agriculture has actually been very, very wonderful in contributing to Nigerian export revenue. We remember of the cocoa days, we remember of the groundnut pyramids, we remember of rubber, quite a lot of other things. But right now, the share of agriculture has actually gone down. And oil, which we far focus upon, is equally due in terms of foreign exchange reserve. So, to me, Nigeria have potentials, but these potentials remain potentials, and we are not actually getting what we should have been getting from them.
All right, Professor, we'll
Yes.
we'll come back to you to have an understanding of what the recommendation of that committee you talked about will be. Now, but before we go ahead into the discussions proper, let's take a look at Nigeria's foreign trade statistics for the first quarter of 2016. Now, the total value of Nigeria's merchandise trade at the end of the first quarter stood at about over $2 billion. And then from the preceding quarter, value of about $3 billion was, this was for 793.5 billion naira, or 22.6% less.
This development arose due to a sharp decline in both imports and exports. Exports saw a decline of 671.1 billion, or about 34.6% if you put it that way, while imports declined by 122.4 billion, or 7.8%. The steep decline in exports brought the country's trade balance down to 184.1 billion naira, or 548.7 billion naira less than
I'm
in the
not
preceding
hearing
quarter.
you. I'm not hearing you.
Now, the crude oil component of total
I'm not-
trade decreased by 716.7 billion naira, or about 46.6%, against the level recorded in the fourth quarter of 2015. Now, Nigeria has three key export partners, and there are India with taking about 12% of the country's export, Spain with 9.4%, and Netherlands with 5.4%.
All right, perhaps we'll bring the professor in here now, talking about the major countries we do business with. We're talking about India, about 9%, Spain, about 12%, and Netherlands, about 5%. How would you describe the trade balance between Nigeria and these three main countries we do business with? Professor Aremu. Professor Aremu, we are talking about the three main countries Nigeria does business with. India, which has about 12%, Spain about 9%, and Netherlands about 5%. We are talking about trade balance now. How would you justify that? Do we have a commensurate trade balance in terms of import and export with these countries?
Okay, thanks very much I'm just hearing you now. Clearly, Nigeria, the direction of Nigerian exports was extensively to Europe. And that is why when you look at all the ones you are adding together, Netherlands and all other countries in Europe, the totality of them goes as much as about 40%. It therefore implies that it may be rather difficult if we don't actually look at issues of Nigerian export with respect to Europe. India is coming up. Also, we are having a lot of relationship with China. America is still less than 20% of our exports. And within Africa, it's just about 12%. And ECOWAS, where I actually work, is very low, less than 10% by now. Clearly, the structure of our exports, as well as the direction of where they are going, is tilting towards just one side, which is rather delicate, because if there's a policy rupture in that particular area, it can be very detrimental to the economy. So I believe that there is need to actually look at it. There's nothing wrong in having very substantial trade with a particular segment of the world. But what is important is that there are other areas, other types of Nigerian export that can go into other countries. So this is the time to actually review quite a lot of this export structure and the direction of the export. So the entire pattern of the general export trade, that will start to the structure as well as the direction of the flow. So actually be looked at, and quite a lot of information are available in that foundational report which I just released to you, submitted by the experts, led by Professor Yejide.
Okay. Now, let me bring in our studio guest in here. He's an agriculturist, Wale Oyekoya. It's good to have you join us right now. Welcome.
Good morning. You're in suit today. You look good.
Mama's supposed to look good.
So that's fine. Now, when it comes to exports, Nigeria seem to export more of agriculture-based products generally. And we have heard instances where some European countries say these products from Nigeria are not of standard. They are not processed to standard. So before you get to Europe, they're either in their raw form or they're getting bad or something, as the case may be. Now, what is the problem with that generally?
I think what we should be talking about is industrialization. We keep on exporting our crude materials, the same thing with the oil that is nothing to write home as of today. And when you talk of industrialization, we are talking of value chain. I keep on saying that value chain is the only way we can get out of this hole. Because when you keep on exporting some of your raw materials, and where we are exporting them to, they put value to it, and they sell it at a very expensive rate. I give an example that, the Côte d'Ivoire now they've taken over of cocoa from us. Yearly, I think they are making about $2.5 billion to Mars or Hershey in US. But this company will turn around from their 2.5, a whole country, they produce of $2.5 billion a year, and they will turn around and produce and make over $18 billion. So why can't we add value to what we are doing? At the same time, we still make our foreign exchange. So where the problem is that infrastructure needs to be in place. We keep on talking about monetary policy, and we neglected the fiscal policy. And without the fiscal policy, we are just wasting our time. What I'm trying to tell you that you will see that agriculture, they created most of the employment in this country, and at the same time, the highest of the GDP, before we ever talk of oil of today. You will see that you have to employ more people when we go into industrialization. That's why you see most of the industries in the country now, they are leaving the country to the neighboring countries. Why? Because the infrastructure is not there, like the power, electricity, or we keep on talking about storage facilities. That's why I said that just sending out our crude or of our raw material is not helping the nation, it's not helping our economy, it's not helping our GDP, it's not even helping our foreign reserves. So I think the present government we have today should be talking about industrialization, whereby the manufacturing sectors will be able to have a say in what we are producing.
Let's bring the professor in here, really. This is a very interesting twist to the discussion. Instead of raw materials, our guest in the studio is saying industrialization is the way forward. Your take on that, Professor?
Off again. I'm not hearing you again.
Professor Aremu, the question is between exporting the raw materials like the palm kernel cake, the palm kernel oil that we have. Our guest in the studio is saying industrialization, that we should produce those things ourselves here, that will yield more income for the country.
I totally agree with what he's saying, that industrialization is the answer. We can't continue to be exporting just crude everything. Crude nuts, crude petroleum, crude, and then you think you want to make a place within the global space. I mean, when you work down, it's only the industrial countries that are making names, not primary producers. So we need to be able to move from primary producer to exporter of industrial products. And that is why the opportunity of regional arrangement in terms of ECOWAS, in terms of the continental free trade area within the African continent, and other partnership agreements with other countries, will be able to allow our export products into some of these countries, because when you actually focus on Europe, quite a lot of the policies will not allow our product to enter because of these sanitary measures. They will impose certain things that the quality is not, the packaging is not, but there are countries that will accept some of these things. China did not get to where they are now, just exporting to developing countries first. They tested their products among themselves, enter into other countries, and then now penetrate into other developed countries. So we have quite a lot of opportunities under the ECOWAS protocol to be able to have our product to penetrate. But again, the problem we are facing is that is our product entering the ECOWAS region the way it should enter? Possibly, a little bit. But quite a lot of them are not recorded. I participated in a particular conference organized by IMF, and we brought our statistics. I was in Central Bank at that time, on export. And the man from IMF said, oh no, we are not going to use your statistics. He said that export figure of Nigeria is the same thing as import from all other countries in the world. And he added all these things together, and it cannot sum up with what we are having. Which means that there are quite a lot of informal trades going on. I believe that if we actually look back and then reform our policies and strategies, then our trade policy can actually answer to what we want, particularly at now. But until we look at it, and that's why I refer you to the foundational assignment, that particular technical report, which we did and submitted February 2012. But up to now, I don't know where it is.
Okay.
It answers quite a lot of the things we are facing.
Well, they will send a research party to
that
the and get the report
out.
out.
We are actually facing a problem.
All right, Professor, we are very interested to know what the recommendations of that committee is. But before I come back to you, let's give a little more information about import and exports in Nigeria. Now, Nigeria's key importers are China with 23.8%, India with 6.5%, and the United States with 8.7%.
Let's also look at the main countries Nigeria exports to. But before we do that, let's tell you that at the end of the first quarter of 2016, Nigeria recorded a total trade of 2.72 trillion naira in export. This is different from the figure it recorded last year, which is 4.39 trillion naira in first quarter of 2015, 4.35 trillion naira in the second quarter of that same year, 4 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2015, 3.65 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2015, and then 2.72 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2016.
Now, these are the countries Nigeria exports its products to. 36% of the country's export goes to Europe, and 28% to Asia, and 12% to other countries around the world. Now, that's the breakdown. Let me, before I bring in Oyekoya here, let me go back to you, Professor. We really want to know the content or the recommendations of this committee, this technical committee that came up with Nigeria export policy that you talked about in 2012. Can you give us some of the recommendations that we might have an idea of what you prescribed for the country at that time?
Yeah, the main recommendation of the committee was for Nigeria to look at what we put there and then bring out a better policy that will answer to the need of the country without violating our position on the multilateral system within the World Trade Organization, and maintaining a very good position within the continent of Africa, as well as ensuring that we never violate the protocols of ECOWAS. Therefore, strategies and policies were actually fashioned in that particular report to ensure that there should be a move from this monoculturality of an economy to an economy that will actually make use of the potential and the cooperative advantage which the country has actually is having. So the industry was a particular chapter that look at what we can do so that we can increase the value added to our exports. Not just continue with export of raw material. Nobody wants to be seeing just raw material just in the raw form. It will command a very low price within the global level in terms of export values.
Okay. All right, Professor,
So
thank you for that.
value added to this, and then the report actually make mention of all those things.
All right.
So it's going to be appreciated that that kind of report is looking to at the Ministry of Trade and Investment. But I cannot say more than that because the report is under the ministry.
Okay.
Thank you for giving us a peep into the report and the recommendation. Mr. Oyekoya, let's talk about the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, their role in this whole discussion. You're talking about packaging and standardization, even of what you have produced here, the raw materials you even have produced here, and what it can earn for Nigeria. Do you think this particular regulator is doing its job well?
Well, I've said it times without number that we need to change our orientations. And when we talk of changes, we don't just leave the president alone about changes. We need to change our attitudes. We are used to doing business as usual. There are so many things that just go under that at the end of the day, it boomerang on us. By the time we talk of standardization, though in Nigeria, most of the standard we have is nothing to write home. That's why you see so many
Why
diseases.
is that? Why is
that? Because of the regulatory bodies are not doing their real job. Anything coming to this country is supposed to be inspected to make sure that they reach the standard of Standard Organization of Nigeria, so-called SON. But you'd be surprised that almost everything that comes to the country are substandards. Then what we are even exporting out are even worse. That is why, if you remember about a year ago where some of our farm produce were banned from entering the Europe and UK.
Our beans still.
Our beans.
Still
I was expecting our standard organization to even improve on it, and I said it that if time is not taken, if cares is not taken, they are going to extend this ban, and surely they extend the ban for another 3 years. So in another 3 years, we are not going to be exporting our beans to the UK and to the Europe. So what does that tell you? That means that we are not a serious nation. We have leaders that are not really visionary, that does not even think about the people that are supposed to govern, in the sense that this thing does not really affect the standardization or their policy, but the economy of the nation. To me, this is like a sabotage. When you have everything within your disposal to make sure that we have a good standard for our product going out or for anything coming in, but because of corruption, I keep on saying corruptions, and that is why sometimes I pity our president, because this is a war that he cannot fight alone. We all need to support him. That's why I said our orientation of the way we do things need to be changed.
All right, let's apart from government that is supposed to provide the policy framework for exportation generally, and the agriculturists, those who are involved in the business themselves, who have traveled far and wide, who know how these things are meant to be, as the case may be, what are their role in trying to ensure that they also standardize, because they are the first beneficiaries of the export or earnings from export, as the case may be? And this is business we're talking about.
To be honest with you, every Nigerian wants to cut corners. Let me be honest with you.
Including you?
Unfortunately, I don't export. So every Nigerian, they wanted to cut corners. They will see something that is right, but they wanted to see how can they beat the system. And in the process of beating the process, they beat their business. And the same thing with the standardization we are talking about. See, this is the standard that, okay, you're supposed to, especially when it comes to the insecticide that we used to put something of our products in the right path. You see that we put more in order for it to have a long shelf span. Or we put little so that after it's going to Europe, it's not too far. But you have forgotten that there might be a delay. in exporting this thing now, maybe through the policy in the country or where you are taking that they wanted to inspect it. So the last time might be like 3 months, you trying to beat the corner within 1 month. At the end of it, by the time you get there, by the time they open this product, you see a whole lot of insects, a whole lot of weevils. So the European just close the container, just close it. So this way it's affecting us, it's affecting the nation. That is why we have so many of these bans. But what I wanted to really say here is that we have so many policies, but some of them is the implementation that's really the problem. Recently now, they removed the grants by the federal government. You can hear where the federal minister, the Minister for Finance is saying that they are going to remove the grant for the export. That is why you see that most of the exporters now, they are no more encouraged. This is the little grant that we are able. But because some people were trying to export what is not exportable, that does not mean that you should shut the whole system down. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, if you remember at the airport, where the Controller General just shut down everything that we're exporting now because some people are trying to export something. You don't do something like that. It affects others. What about people that are exporting perishable items? How do you want them to even do more when you already shut them up that you cannot export this thing when they're almost at the gate of sending this thing out? So our policy really needs to be strengthened, and at the same time we need to have a sound policy.
Okay, let's bring in Professor Aremu here. Now, ECOWAS, let me come in from ECOWAS now. ECOWAS was formed on the basis of socio-economic benefits for these countries found amongst the membership. Now, if we look at the intra-trade within the ECOWAS Commission, how beneficial has it been? How would you rate their performance when it comes to trade between the countries of ECOWAS?
Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful question. I've been expecting that. Clearly, when ECOWAS was set up, it was based on economic integration. And what is simply economic integration? It's a sort of a regional agreement that will allow you to trade more among yourselves. Normally, economic integration leads to trade relation among participating members. But by diverting your focus from other parts of the world. And therefore, that's why the foundational theory said that economic integration leads to trade diversion and trade creation. Trade creation among participating members, trade by diversion from other parts of the world. When ECOWAS was set up, the phases of integration were there. It was set up by the founding fathers to actually obey that stretch of phases. That is from free trade area to custom union, from custom union to common market, and from common market to economic union. Under the free trade area, we are to ensure that goods move among ourselves without any restriction, no import duty. And therefore, we currently have ECOWAS trade liberalization, in which products of member states are moving among themselves without further restriction, without import duty. Then also is the next stage of custom union, which we reached last year, in which not only are products of member states moving among themselves freely, but product coming to any member state will enter that member state within ECOWAS at the same import duty. And that will erase totally this issue of buying cars in Cotonou and bringing it to Nigeria, because the car will come in at the same duty. And the essence of this is to be able to ensure that there is no more trade deflection. Then further than that is the common market, in which there is a collapse of the policies on economics, on investment, among member states, so that we can operate as a single market. And then the final stage is economic union, where we have a single currency. Now, ECOWAS have achieved substantial results with respect to ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme. But one major problem that is still facing ECOWAS which the central banks of West Africans, Central Bank of Nigeria, Central Bank of Ghana, BCL in the Francophone country, which they resolve. If you want to open letter of credit now in the ECOWAS country, you have to open it either in euro or in dollar.
All right, Professor
Aremu.
Yeah, Professor Aremu, we will come back to you to make this point proper. We need to go on the news, or go for the news updates now, and then we come back for you to make your point. Now, Kemi Folademo is standing by for the news update for this time. Kemi, is all yours now.
Thanks a lot, Mike. The Niger Delta Avengers is ready for dialogue. The group posted a message on its website giving conditions for the proposed peace talks. Among them are the participation of a multi-side negotiating team. The group wants its own side to be led by prominent Niger Delta leader Edwin Clark, and also wants representatives from the federal government, the home countries of all multinational oil corporations, as well as neutral international mediators. It also wants the restructuring of Nigeria and the cessation of military offensive in the Niger Delta region. While some aggrieved members of the All Progressives Congress who recently locked up the party secretariat in Ondo State have tendered an apology to the party leaders. The members who formed a faction to kick against the alleged imposition of a governorship candidate in Ondo say they have resolved to work for the party's development. And another Ondo State governorship aspirant on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, Boye Oyewumi, is optimistic the party will get over the crisis rocking it before its primary election. Oyewumi made the statement while hosting women delegates from the 18 local councils of the state. He distributed some gift items to them and said the party is passing through a normal phase of any democratic setting. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says Adamawa State has the capacity to feed the nation and contribute effectively to food security if its agricultural potential is harnessed. Obasanjo made the observation in Yola during a courtesy call on Governor Mohammed Jibril Abindo. He insisted that agriculture, if taken seriously, can eliminate poverty and promised to use his influence to attract investors to the state. That's news update at this time. More on Nigeria's export plans now with Mike and Busolami.
Thank you, Kemi, for the updates.
And you stay on to TVC Breakfast, and the topic right now is Nigerian export, and we have our guest in the studio, Professor Jonathan Aremu, and here with us in the studio, Mr. Wale Oyekoya. Prince Wale Oyekoya is here with us. Just before we went on the news update break, Professor, you were telling us about the ECOWAS integration and the trade liberalization, and the particular point you were making has to do with the payment, talking about single currency, the WAMI and the WAMZE within the Nigerian Central Bank, the Ghana Central Bank, and that. Is the professor still there? Okay, all right. So can you just expatiate on that?
Let me assist you. Yes, I'm not talking of single currency. I'm saying that you maintain your Naira account in Nigeria, but you can go to any ECOWAS country and access the same account in Nigeria. Therefore, you can use your account in Nigeria to buy anything. Quite a lot of Nigerian students are studying in West African countries, but they have to pay $2. And therefore, in ECOWAS Commission, there is a program we call the ECOWAS Payment and Settlement System, which means at the touch of a button, you can access your account in any country. And when you look at COMESA, and you look at SADC, these are other regional communities within Africa. They are really making progress in terms of volume of trade among themselves as a result of the payment system. So ECOWAS is trying to do the same thing. In February this year, all the central banks agreed in their meeting that ECOWAS should go ahead to put in place a payment system in which people don't need to carry Naira or go through intervention of euro or dollar before going to other ECOWAS countries for their economic transaction. I think ECOWAS needs to be commended on that one, which I think they are working upon to come into effect anytime from now. So that will increase the volume of trade so that all this excessive looking into Europe to be able to be where our exports can go, we can actually be minimized, in which substantial exports can actually go among ourselves also.
All right.
The same process is happening at the continental level. I mean, some of you are aware of the Continental Free Trade Area. And in the conclusion of the Continental Free Trade Area, it's going to be a continental payment system so that we can trade among ourselves using our individual national currencies.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Professor.
So
We'll,
this is exactly what I say
yeah.
is going on.
Yeah, Professor, we'll come back to this. Let's have other information in here. Now, according to statistics by the Chamber of Commerce, the non-oil product export sector is rapidly on the rise, and thanks to the federal government's policy and support for the non-oil industry, especially agriculture.
And let's look at some products that have fairly performed better as export earner to Nigeria. Palm kernel cake as a byproduct in the milling of palm kernel oil is commonly exported mainly to Europe. It is delivered in bulk via vessel or packed in bags for easier handling and distribution. Lately, it is also used as a biomass fuel in Europe, especially United Kingdom, to provide heat and energy. The cake is demanded by feed millers and by exporters.
Now, when the African Growth and Opportunity Act called AGOA came into effect, many Nigerians saw a window of foreign exchange earning in the textile and garment section of the act and keyed into it. Now, Nigeria's textiles and apparels have been granted duty-free passage into the United States, where a large market exists for ethnic African fabrics and designs.
Like many trees, the cocoa tree produces fruit inside, the produce inside the fruit. Inside the fruit are a seed known as cocoa beans. When cocoa beans are crushed and pressed, cocoa butter and cocoa powder are released, both of which are essential to chocolate making. This product is in high demand in the UK and, of course, America.
Now, cashew are found wild and cultivated in about 14 states in Nigeria, but it was potential for cultivation in almost all parts of the country. Actual production figure is not available, but it is estimated to be around 50,000 tons annually. Now, over 80% of it is exported raw and unprocessed to India, Vietnam, and Brazil, where they are processed into kernels and sold for higher value in Europe and North America.
Other products include charcoal with a 40% return on investment, cosmetics and soap, rubber, shea butter, and sesame seed.
And sesame seeds, with Nigeria being one of the major producers of sesame seed in Africa. Now, in fact, the global production of sesame seed in 2005 was put at 2.4 million metric tons, with China and India as leading producers.
Nigeria is the fifth largest producer of the commodity in the world, with an estimated production of 120,000 metric tons annually. That's quite a lot of it.
That's really huge. But other products include garlic, chili pepper, pure honey, poultry, and fruit juice.
Let's tell you that Nigeria's fruit juice market has grown 60% over the last 5 years, and this growth is due to increasing incomes of Nigerian consumers, an expanding middle class, and greater health consciousness of consumers.
And world production of yam is 51.4 million tons per year, out of which Nigeria accounts for an average of 36.7 million tons, Ghana for 3.6 million tons, and Cote d'Ivoire for 4.8 million tons. Now, let me come to you, Professor, before I let you go in Abuja studio. Then we can concentrate on Wale in the studio. Now, Nigeria seemed to be trying to be very aggressive in diversifying its economy away from oil now, based on how things are. What do you think are the chances of really getting Nigeria into that stance where it can really benefit from exports and earn foreign currency? Professor, can you hear me? If you can hear me, let me ask again. I'm saying that at this stance where Nigeria is...
again.
Okay. Nigeria is doing everything possible to diversify its economy now, and there is a new policy government is trying to come up with on exports generally. What are the chances that Nigeria can really benefit from that?
Okay. Well, there are quite a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities, and for Nigeria to be able to make inroad. But let me warn here. I don't think there is any country in the world today that can be classified as world powers, as world power. And then third country is only on primary product. Is that we are the largest producer of all these things that are primary does not say much about what we can get from our export revenue. I believe strongly that quite a lot of these products we are producing in the country, a little transformation of some of them can make them become a better product that will command greater respect and revenue from the international economy. Rather than just exporting them raw and then commanding low prices, I think there should be a way of actually having investment that will turn them around, transform some of these products into exportable that will command greater respect in terms of value added. So if we just continue because we are the greatest producer and this one says same thing, we are the greatest producer, and all of them are agricultural products. Yes, okay, but they are not commanding money. What we want is money. So I believe that we need to be able to attract investment. And that is why an appropriate chapter was put into that document of Nigerian Trade Review, which we worked upon. In fact, it was my assignment on investment, which we need. While actually focusing on review Nigerian trade, we must equally make opportunity for better investment, both domestic investment and foreign direct investment, so that they can transform some of these products into exportables that can be classified as industrial products and then greater amount of money.
Yeah, but how do we do that? The
conversation of having plenty of yam and pepper is not what we are talking about now. So I believe that, yes, there is prospect of all these things that they go into the international market, but they will still not command the respect we wanted. And they will not bring the amount of money that we wanted in this country.
All right, Professor Jonathan Aremu.
Yeah, that's what I can say now.
All right, Professor, thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast. It's good to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We still have Mr. Oyekoya here with us. Really, just let's pick up from where the professor stopped. Perhaps you actually alluded to it earlier, industrialization, but you're aware that there's contraction going on in the growth output in the country. How can that trend be reversed?
He's a professor of theory. I could say I'm a professor
of practice.
So it's two different things entirely, but we're all trying to reach the same goal. Just what he had rather said, that we are the largest producer of this, but how do we add value? I give an example. Yes, farming, agriculture is a way of diversification of economy, but to me, that does not mean that we're getting out of the hood. Without adding value to what we are producing, we will just be shortchanging ourselves. We will just be exporting what we're supposed to have really do here to really create employment and increase our economy. In the sense that in agriculture, it's very tedious. The nitty-gritty of agriculture, many people does not know. They think that it's very easy. Go and ask those people in the farm where they are biting flies here and there, where the Boko Harams are threatening them, where the insurgency, all kind of herdsmen is threatening them. They are creating employment, but you will be surprised the job you can create, supposing in an industry of cocoa in the farm, maybe you are creating about 5 million in the whole country. But by the time you start the industrialization, you started having industry, you'll be surprised how many people will be employed. I'm talking of triple, because there you're going to have accountants, engineers, who is going to fix most of the equipment. If there's any sick bay, doctors will come in, nurses will come in. People like you will be able to do marketing. You'll be able to showcase what we are producing. Oh, this is a very beautiful package. But without that, we are just a giant asleep. Let me be very honest with you.
So in specific terms, really, how do we get from point A to point B?
It's a very simple thing. Apart from production, apart from producing all this thing in the farm, adding value. Without adding value, I keep on talking of value. What I mean by value, a farmer that produces a tomato in Adamawa or in Kano, maybe about 8,000 naira per basket. You can imagine how many paste can be produced out of these 8,000 per cartons. And you can multiply. The multiplying effect is more than what we are just showcasing, exporting everything now, just like what we do to our crude. That is what killed this nation. When we're supposed to refine our oil, we keep on sending out the crude. And what happened now, we have a whole lot of glut in the Gulf that nobody wants to buy them. So as time goes on, some of these things is going to be the same way. And we have so many youths in this country that wanted to gain employment. Some of them have finished 4 or 5 years ago with no employment with degree. And some of these people does not even need all this degree. What happened to our vocational schools? It's dead. And this is from the vocational school. You can see people learning how to add value to some of these things that we are producing.
All right. When it comes to the issue of adding value, because we are short of time now, okay. But we know that businessmen, when you're running in capitalism, there's competition. And sure. Everyone is trying to be creative. Everyone is trying to edge the other one out, as the case may be. Now, a lot of fingers are pointing to government in this case. Are we saying that our businessmen are not as creative as they're supposed to be to take us to that drive, to take us to that level to which you are talking about adding value?
We are not up to, because yeah, we keep on talking of government, because there are certain conditions and certain policy that need to be implemented by the government. Because a farmer, let me put it that way, or an industrialist cannot be creating everything for himself, like creating the road that leads to a factory, electricity that's going to generate to power all these things, and security. So there are so many things in play that's why we keep on talking about government. The government have no business in going into these businesses, but they have to provide the enabling environment. Okay. That's what everybody is talking about, either the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, the industrialists, the farmers, even including yourself. You can imagine if there's no light, who is going to hear us? So there are so many things that the government really need to really sit and listen. We need to do something if you really want to industrialize our nation.
All right, Wale Oyekoya, thank you very much for coming on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming, sir.